Hello everyone, I am the Traveling Sports Nerd, and today I welcome you into a brand new series on the channel. This is the Pin Collector Chronicles. On this series, I'm going to share some stories about the over 500 pins that I have located here behind me up on my wall. There are just so many stories from these pins that they mean a lot to me. There are some pins where I might not know a whole lot about the story to where it's only going to be 15, 20 seconds. And there's other pins I could probably tell you 3, 5, 10 minutes of background on how I came to acquire that pin and what it means to me. I hope that everybody here enjoys this. Worst case scenario, if it's just for me to look back on in 10 years, I'll be very happy with that as well. But I saw a few comments asking for more content on the pins, and there's just so many, and I'm really excited to share it with all of you. The way I've done this is I have 4 boards behind me. You can see the bottom 2 here. This is my places board, and this is sort of my miscellaneous board. You can see parts of that. And then way up above, you can't see it on the screen right now, but my 2 big boards are my sports board and my Disney board. The way this works is I'm going to select 5 pins per episode, maybe more on some episodes, but for this episode, I picked 5 pins. I'm going to pick 2 from the sports board because I am the traveling sports nerd, so we'll try and focus on the sports here, but you'll find that I have interests that definitely go beyond the sports world, and while most of my vlogs are going to be focused on the sports, we'll talk a little bit beyond the sports here in the Pin Collector Chronicles. And just a little background on how I got into pin collecting, if you may be wondering. Over about 15 years ago now, I started collecting pins from Disney World. That was my entry into the pin collecting game. The Disney pin trading is what got me hooked. Disney World and Disneyland, they have so many pins that you can buy, and you're going to see a lot of the Disney pins that I have. I have a full board dedicated to Disney pins. But when I was a little kid, I thought that pins were kind of just a Disney thing. And then one day we were actually at the San Diego Zoo, and I remember seeing a San Diego Zoo pin and thinking, wait, you can get these outside of Disney? And unfortunately, I don't have that pin anymore, but I still remember it, and that was kind of my introduction to, wait, you can get these at sports stadiums, and boy, oh boy, do I have a lot of sports pins now. And you can just get them everywhere. I've gotten them from musicals. I've gotten pins that represent places, cities, states, hotels I've stayed at, shops I've been to. I mean, museums. There's just so many different things that lapel pins can commemorate, and so I really am extremely passionate about this collection, and I'm beyond excited to start sharing some of it with you guys. The first pin here is a commemorative pin from the 2023 NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four. This pin has the logo of the 2023 Frozen Four, and in addition, down below has the logos of the 4 teams that competed in that tournament. That would be the Boston University Terriers, the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers, my favorite team, the University of Michigan Wolverines, and the team that would go on to win the national championship, the Quinnipiac University Bobcats. I did get this pin at the 2023 Frozen Four. This was the first time that I ever bought my own plane ticket. This game, or games last year, I flew down for that. I stayed with a buddy who lives in St. Petersburg, so only about a 30-minute drive away from Amalie Arena in Tampa. And that was my first time at Amalie Arena, and even though it hurt to see Michigan lose, it was still a really cool experience. It was my first ever Frozen Four that I attended, and I definitely have fond memories of that tournament, even though Michigan didn't end up winning it all. They lost in that semifinal round to Quinnipiac. And I did attend all 3 games of that Frozen Four. I saw Minnesota versus Boston University, Michigan versus Quinnipiac on that semifinal Thursday. And then actually in the heartbreak of the Michigan loss, I sold my ticket because I just thought, I'm not going to go to the national championship. I don't care. And then I had an epiphany the day of the national championship. I was like, I flew down here, flight was not cheap. What else am I going to do? Might as well go watch the national championship. And it was really fun. I rooted for Quinnipiac to beat Minnesota, and they did in a very exciting fashion in sudden death overtime. They scored like 7 seconds into overtime. It was insane. Winner takes all. Next goal wins the national championship. Quinnipiac wins it all. So those are some of the memories that I think of when I think of that pin. And I just think of, my first ever Frozen Four, and getting to spend time with my friend down in St. Petersburg and in Tampa. And I think of how nice the weather was for April. I live here in Michigan, and it's still dreary and cold at that time of year up here. But down there, it was like 80 degrees outside for a national championship in hockey. I was wearing a hockey jersey and shorts to the arena. It was one of those kind of days. So definitely have fond memories when I think of that pin. The next pin is one of the few Space Mountain pins that I own. We're focusing on the Disney section now. This is a pin that says Space Mountain Intergalactic Exploration, and it's got Mickey Mouse on the cover in the spacesuit, and the exterior of Space Mountain in the background. I've done Space Mountain at both Disney World and Disneyland. I love them both. A little bit of different ride design elements, but pretty similar for the most part. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that pin was bought at Disney World on a trip in 2021. So when I think of that trip, I think of how this was the first really big trip that me or my family took after COVID. We had gotten our first COVID vaccines on the way down to Disney for that trip. We wore masks. We had masks in pretty much all of our pictures. And look, I haven't really worn a mask in a long time, but I was definitely being very cautious back then. I thought that was the right thing to do. My whole family did, And there were a lot of pictures where they were actually just starting to let people take their masks off for pictures, but we had only gotten our first dose yet, so we were definitely like, hey, like, we're cool with having the masks on in the picture. At least that's how I felt. And I thought to myself, hey, like, look, this will be a time capsule for, like, this is what life was like back then. And that's still how I feel when I look back at those pictures. There's never any regret on my end with the masks on. I think it's actually kind of an interesting time capsule. So anytime I see a pin that comes up from that trip, that's one of those things I think of. I've got multiple pictures of myself. Maybe I'll throw one in here of riding Space Mountain with the Liverpool FC mask on. Really fun trip. And so yeah, love Space Mountain. One of my favorite rides, one of the first ever kind of roller coasters that I ever did. So I love that pin. The next pin comes from my miscellaneous board. And this is one of, let's say, 5 to 10% of pins that I actually didn't make the purchase myself. It came from somebody else. So this pin here, it says, give blood for friends. This pin definitely predates me, or maybe it was from when I was little, but this was bought or acquired way before I got into pin collecting. This is one of a handful of pins that actually comes from my late grandfather. And I don't know a whole lot of the backstory of that pin, but it's one of about 3 or 4 that come from when my grandfather would donate blood. And I love displaying those pins on my board, mainly because I love my grandfather and I love my grandpa. That's what I'd call him, grandpa. He passed away when I was only 5 years old. So I did not get to foster a necessarily deep relationship while he was alive with him. But my grandpa is the reason that I'm a Michigan fan. And so much of my sport fandom and passion comes from him and is all thanks to him. And I know if he were still alive today, we'd be best friends. And especially after Michigan just winning the national championship in football this past season, I can only imagine how much fun we would have had together. So, not too much backstory on that pin, but Anytime I have a pin that, was from my grandpa, um, I'll be very happy to point that out and, um, keep his memory alive. So that's really important to me. This next pin was acquired by me only a few months ago. This is the Redwoods pin. It's got one of those famous redwood sequoia trees, uh, and just says Redwoods. Um, I got this pin at a little gift shop that was, just a very small, tiny little gift shop just off the road in it's the Avenue of Giants, I believe it's called. I'll have to double check that. Um, Avenue of the Giants, I think is what it's called. A little tiny shop while we were in there. And this was my first time in Northern California. We were actually on our way from Seattle, where we had just seen a Mariners game, down to the Bay Area, where we'd be seeing an Oakland A's game and a San Francisco Giants game. Uh, you know, we as a family took that drive down and made a point to kind of go a little bit out of the way to go and explore some of the redwoods. And we spent maybe an hour or so just driving through, ended up getting out of the car for a little bit, walking through the redwoods for a little bit, and it was absolutely beautiful. I definitely treasure that memory, and uh, you know that was the last baseball trip with my parents and my brother, at least for now. But most likely, that was our that was our baseball trip to finish all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums, and so you know those are the kind of things that I think of when I think of that pin. You'll see as I talk about these pins, it's so easy to go on tangents, but every pin that I see, not only is there the primary story, but there's like a secondary story as well, and a tertiary story, and just you can unravel that yarn so many different directions. And so yeah, that redwoods pin, I like it, and it's a very good memory getting to see the redwood forest for the first time, and I would definitely go back. It was very beautiful. And the last pin that I'm going to talk about in this episode is a special commemorative St. Louis Cardinals pin that has a theme overlaid on it. It's St. Louis Cardinals logo with the flag of the city of St. Louis as sort of the design of the logo. So instead of just that solid red, you've got, that fleur-de-lis and the rest of the St. Louis flag as a Cardinals logo. I've been to a couple of St. Louis Cardinals games at Busch Stadium. It's one of my favorite stadiums in the league. I absolutely love it there. And I love the city of St. Louis. I've been on a handful of occasions now, and it's one of my favorite cities in the country. I truly do love it. It's charming. It kind of reminds me of my hometown metro area of Detroit. Um, and I really enjoy it there. So anytime that I've gone back to St. Louis, I always try and find a new pin. And that's how that St. Louis Cardinals one came to be. That definitely was not my first trip. That may have been from a few years ago. Me and a couple of buddies went and saw the Tigers play at the Cardinals. The Tigers won, which was really fun. That was actually that was the game after Miguel Cabrera hit his 500th home run. So we were wondering, like, are we going to see his 500th home run at Busch Stadium? And then he hit it 2 days before in Toronto. It was like, but it was still so exciting as a Tigers fan. And Miggy ended up hitting a home run that night at Busch Stadium. So we got to see 501. And those are the kind of things you never forget. I love that Cardinals pin. I love the design of that flag. And it's representative of a city that I have a great appreciation for and I've greatly enjoyed. So definitely a pin that I get a kick out of. So those are the 5 pins that we talked about today. We've got the 2023 Frozen 4. We've got the Space Mountain pin. We've got the Redwoods pin. We've got the blood donation pin from my grandpa. And we've got the St. Louis Cardinals city-inspired pin. And that's all we're going to do today. I've got over 500 of these pins. So if you enjoy hearing me talk about these pins, There's a lot more where that came from. So we'll just keep it at those 5 today, and hopefully I can crank out some more of these. You know, I had a lot of fun talking about these, and if you have any comments or questions about any of these pins and these stories, I would love to interact with you and talk about them more. So feel free to leave a comment. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. I would love to know if you guys enjoy this kind of content. And then let me know in the comments, are you guys pin collectors yourselves? I would love to know if you have a favorite pin. Maybe you could share your story with me. And maybe you don't collect pins, maybe you collect something else like this, and let me know what that is, because I know how passionate I am about my pin collecting, and I'm always so thrilled to share it with people. So if you have something that you want to share that you're thrilled about, please let me know in the comments and reach out. I would love to hear your story too. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am the Traveling Sports Nerd, and I will see you next time.